The Elven Nations Trilogy. Firstborn by Paul B. Thompson and Tanya C. Cook. Prelude. The great river Thanthalas flowed southward through the forests of Silvanesti. 3/4 of the way down its length, the broad waterway branched, and twin streams flowed around an island called Falan. On this island was the capital city of the Elven nation, Silvanost. Silvanost was a city of towers, gleaming white. They soared skyward, some dwarfing even the massive oak trees on the mainland. Unlike the mainland, Falan Island had few trees. Most had been removed to make way for the city. The island's naturally occurring marble and quartz formations had then been spell-shaped by the Silvanesti, transforming them into houses and towers. Approaching the island from the west on the King's Road, a traveler could see the marble city, gleaming with pearly light through the trees. At night, the city absorbed the starlight and moonlight and radiated it softly back to the heavens. On this particular night, scuttling clouds covered the sky and a chill rain fell. A brisk breeze swirled over the island. The streets of Silvanost, however, were full. In spite of the damp cold, every elf in the city stood outside, shouting, clapping, and singing joyfully. Many carried candles, hooded against the rain, and the dancing lights added to the strange yet festive air. A wonderful thing had happened that evening in the capital. Sithel, Speaker of the Stars, ruler of all Silvanesti, had become a father. Indeed, the great fortune of Speaker Sithel was that he had 2 sons. He was the father of twins, a rare event among elves. The Silvanesti began to call Sithel twice blessed, and they celebrated in the cool, damp night. The Speaker of the Stars was not receiving well-wishers, however. He was not even in the palace of Quinari, where his wife, Nirakina, still lay in her birthing bed with her new sons. Sithel had left his attendants and walked alone across the plaza between the palace and the Tower of the Stars, the ceremonial seat of the speaker's power. Though common folk were not allowed in the plaza by night, the speaker could hear the echoes of their celebrations. He strode through the dark outlines of the garden surrounding the tower. Wending his way along the paths, he entered the structure through a door reserved for the royal family. Circling to the front end of the great emerald throne, Sithel could see the vast audience hall. It was not completely dark. 600 feet above him was a shaft in the roof of the tower, open to the sky. Moonlight, broken by clouds, filtered down the shaft. The walls of the tower were pierced by spiraling rows of window slits and encrusted with precious jewels of every description. These split the moonlight into iridescent beams, and the beams bathed the walls and floor in 1,000 myriad colors. Yet Sithel had no mind for this beauty now. Seating himself on the throne he had occupied for 2 centuries, he rested his hands on the emerald arms, allowing the coolness of the stone to penetrate and soothe his heavy heart. A figure appeared in the monumental main doorway. "Enter," said the speaker. He hardly spoke above a whisper, but the perfect acoustics of the hall carried the single word clearly to the visitor. The figure approached. He halted at the bottom of the steps leading up to the throne platform and set a small brazier on the marble floor. Finally the visitor bowed, low and said, "You summoned me, great speaker." His voice was light, with the lilt of the North Country in it. "Vedvetsika, servant of Gilleen," Sithel said. "Rise." Vedvetsika stood. Unlike the clerics of Silvernost, who wore white robes and a sash in the color of their patron deity, Vedvetsika wore a belted tabard of solid gray. His god had no temple in the city, because the gods of neutrality were not officially tolerated by the priests who served the gods of good. Vedvetsika said, "May I congratulate your highness on the birth of his sons?" Sithel nodded curtly. "It is because of them that I have called you here," he replied. "Does your god allow you to see the future?" "My master Gilleen holds in his hands the Tobril, the Book of Truth. Sometimes he grants me glimpses of this book." From the priest's expression, it appeared that this was not a practice he enjoyed. "I will give you 100 gold pieces," said the speaker. "Ask your god, and tell me the fate of my sons." Vedvetsika bowed again. He dipped a hand into the voluminous pockets of his tabard and brought out 2 dried leaves, still shiny green, but stiff and brittle. Removing the conical cover from the brazier, he exposed hot coals and held the leaves by their stems over the dully glowing fire. "Gilleen, the book, gray voyager, sage of truth, gate of souls, by this fire open my eyes and allow me to read from the book of all truth." The cleric's voice was stronger now, resonating through the empty hall. "Open the Tobril! Find for Speaker Sithel the fates of his 2 sons, born this day." Vedvetsika laid the dried leaves on the coals. They caught fire immediately, flames curling around them with a loud crackle. Smoke snaked up from the brazier, thick, gray smoke that condensed as it rose. Sithel gripped the arms of his throne and watched the smoke coil and writhe. Vedvetsika held up his hands as if to embrace it. Gradually, the smoke formed into the wavering shape of an open scroll. The back of the scroll faced Sithel. The front was for Vedvetsika only. The cleric's lips moved as he read from the book that contained all the knowledge of the gods. In less than a minute, the leaves were totally consumed. The fire flared 3 feet above the golden brazier, instantly dispelling the smoke. In the flash of flame, the priest cried out in pain and reeled away. Sithel leaped up from his throne as Vedvetsika collapsed in a heap. After descending the steps from the throne platform, Sithel knelt behind the cleric and carefully turned him over. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. "Tell me, I command you." Vedvetsika took his hands from his face. His eyebrows were singed. His face blackened. 5 words. I saw only 5 words, Your Highness, he said falteringly. "What were they?" Sithel nearly shook the fellow in his haste to know. The Tobril said, "They shall both wear crowns." Sithel frowned, his pale, arching brows nodding together. "What does it mean? 2 crowns?" he demanded angrily. How could they both wear crowns?
It means what it means, twice blessed.
The speaker looked at the brazier, its coals still glowing. A few seconds' glimpse into the book had nearly cost Vedvetsika his sight. What would the knowledge of Gilean's prophecy cost Sithil himself? What would it cost Sylvanesti?